Beal to Boston? Celtics trade bombshell, plus Queta named NBA's most underrated. 4 huge stories in 48 hours. Boston, we need to talk. In the last 48 hours, 4 massive stories dropped on this Celtics team, and if you're not paying attention, you're getting blindsided in October. A former All-Star who wants to play with Jason Tatum. A blockbuster trade that could land Boston one of the best young wings in basketball. A Celtics big man the entire league just admitted they slept on. And the kid the front office refused to trade, even for Giannis. I'm ranking all 4, biggest to most slept on. Smash like, subscribe if you're new, and let's get into it. Bradley Beal to Boston? The Celtics are in on a former All-Star. Bradley Beal, Boston Celtics. Those 2 things are now being said in the same sentence by multiple NBA insiders, and honestly, it makes more sense than you think. Here's what's happening. Bradley Beal declined his player option with the LA Clippers this offseason. That was a $5.6 million option, and he walked away from it to test unrestricted free agency. Now, at 33 years old, Beal is coming off a season where he played just 6 games due to hip surgery. That's not a typo. 6 games. So on paper, this looks like a low-risk, low-reward flyer for whoever signs him. But according to NBA insider Jake Fisher, the Boston Celtics are now firmly in the mix. Fisher said on a Bleacher Report livestream that he was told not to rule out Boston as a landing spot for the 3-time All-Star, and that the interest is tied directly to Beal's relationship with Jason Tatum. These 2 are close. They're both from the St. Louis area, and Tatum has talked in the past about wanting to play with him. The Miami Heat have also been heavily connected to Beal, so this is shaping up to be a real sweepstakes between 2 Eastern Conference contenders. Let's talk about the timing here, because context is everything. This comes right after the Celtics traded Jaylen Brown to the Philadelphia 76ers. That trade left a massive scoring void on the wing, and Brad Stevens has been active trying to fill it. Adding a healthy Bradley Beal, even a diminished 33-year-old version, gives Boston another shot creator who can play off Tatum, Derek White, and Paul George. Now here's the complication, and it's a big one: money. The Celtics are currently sitting about $1.7 million below the luxury tax line. If they sign Beal, even at the veteran minimum, that pushes them back into the tax. That means Brad Stevens would need to make another subtractive move before the trade deadline just to reset the repeater tax penalties. This isn't as simple as just inking a contract. There's real roster math involved. We also can't ignore the elephant in the room. Beal has dealt with significant injury concerns for multiple years now, going back to his final seasons in Washington and his brief stint in Phoenix. Adding him to a roster that already has Paul George, who has his own injury history, means Boston would be rolling the dice on 2 oft-injured veterans in their starting or bench rotation. If both of them go down, this team has real depth issues. But if healthy, a former 30-point-per-game scorer walking into Boston on a minimum deal, with real motivation to prove he still belongs, playing alongside his close friend Jason Tatum? That's the kind of upside swing that turns into an incredible value if it hits. I think this is worth the risk. At the veteran minimum, with an open roster spot already available, this isn't a move that costs the Celtics anything in terms of assets. It's purely a health bet. And with LeBron James still sitting unsigned and holding up part of the market, Beal's markets in Miami and Boston are both waiting on how that dominoes. Keep an eye on this one, because I think it moves fast once LeBron makes his decision. Trey Murphy III. Trade talks are heating up, and the price just dropped. This is the trade Celtics fans have wanted for months, and we just got the update that could actually make it happen. Trey Murphy III has been connected to the Celtics in trade rumors basically since the Jaylen Brown situation started heating up. He's a 25-year-old wing, coming off the best season of his career with the New Orleans Pelicans, 21.5 points, 5.7 rebounds, 3.8 assists, and 1.5 steals per game, while shooting 37.9% from three on huge volume. He is exactly the kind of 3-and-D, high-upside wing that fits perfectly into Joe Mazzulla's system next to Jason Tatum. The problem up until now has been price. The Pelicans reportedly wanted 4 first-round picks for Murphy, which is a massive ask for a player who, while talented, isn't a top 15 guy in the league yet. That price point made a lot of interested teams, including Boston, back off. But here's the update. According to Hoops Hype's Michael Scotto, New Orleans has dropped their asking price from 4 first-round picks down to 3. That is a real, meaningful shift, and it changes the entire calculus for Boston. Remember, the Celtics already sent Jaylen Brown to Philadelphia. That trade brought back significant draft compensation, 2 additional first-round picks and 2 second-round picks. That gives Brad Stevens a much deeper draft war chest to work with when constructing an offer for Murphy. Instead of gutting the roster or attaching a core rotation player, Boston can lean heavily on picks to get this deal done. There's also been chatter about attaching Paul George to sweeten a package, but let's be real about that. New Orleans almost certainly does not want to take on George's contract, given his age and recent health history. If a deal happens, expect it to be pick-heavy rather than centered around outgoing salary from a rotation piece. This story has layers, and one of the more interesting threads is that Murphy has reportedly signaled his own desire to be traded. Sam Amick of The Athletic said on a radio appearance that there is definitely a bunch of Trey Murphy noise, and that it's become clear Murphy wants a change of scenery. For Boston, that's actually great news. You'd much rather trade for a disgruntled star who wants to be in Boston than one who has to be talked into it. This all connects back to the Celtics' failed pursuit of Giannis Antetokounmpo, who ultimately ended up with the Miami Heat instead. Once that fell through, Murphy became the clear Plan B for a Celtics front office desperate to add another high-level talent next to Tatum. Longtime NBA reporter Jeff Goodman even said the Celtics have been fans of Trey Murphy for years, calling him a vastly underrated player. One version of this deal that's been floated involves a 3-team structure between Boston, New Orleans, and a third team like Portland, where Murphy lands in Boston, an outgoing piece lands elsewhere, and the Pelicans collect a cache of draft compensation. Golden State has also been mentioned as a competing suitor for Murphy, reportedly discussing trade packages centered around this year's lottery pick. So Boston isn't operating in a vacuum here. If the Warriors get aggressive, that could force Brad Stevens' hand to finalize an offer quickly. With the price dropping to 3 firsts and Boston sitting on a fresh haul of picks from the Brown trade, I think this deal gets done before training camp. Murphy next to Tatum, White, and George gives this roster real two-way juice on the wing. And at 25 years old, he fits Boston's timeline far better than a 33-year-old rental like Beal does. If I'm ranking Boston's offseason priorities, landing Murphy should be at the very top. Bleacher Report just called Neemias Queta the most underrated player in the entire NBA. While everyone's been talking about superstar names, the national media just admitted something Celtics fans have known for a year. Neemias Queta is a certified steal. Bleacher Report released its ranking of the 10 most underrated players in the league, and sitting at number 1, ahead of every single other name on that list, is Boston Celtics center Neemias Queta. Zach Buckley, who wrote the piece, put it simply, when the Celtics gutted their bloated payroll last summer, they knew their front court might collapse. Queta is the biggest, maybe the only, reason it didn't. Let's rewind Queta's story for a second, because it's honestly one of the best redemption arcs in the league right now. He was the 39th pick in the 2021 draft by the Sacramento Kings. He barely played there, mostly stuck in the G League, and the Kings eventually waived him in 2023. He signs with Boston, and for a while, he's buried on the depth chart behind other bigs. Then last summer, the Celtics moved on from all 3 of their other big men. Suddenly, at 26 years old, Queta isn't fighting for minutes anymore. He's the day one starting center for a 56-win team that secured the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. And he didn't just hold the fort, he thrived. Queta averaged 10.2 points on an absurd 65.3% shooting from the field, 8.4 rebounds, and over 2 stocks, steals plus blocks, per game in just over 25 minutes a night. His advanced numbers are even more ridiculous. His estimated plus-minus put him in the 95th percentile of the entire league. His win shares per 48 minutes trailed only names like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Nikola Jokic, Jalen Duren, and Victor Wembanyama. That's the company Queta's efficiency numbers are keeping. He finished 4th in Most Improved Player voting last season, and the Celtics organization clearly recognizes what they have. Earlier this offseason, they locked Queta up with a fully guaranteed 4-year, $56 million contract extension that runs through the 2030-31 season. That's not a "we'll see" deal. That's the front office betting real money on him being a long-term piece of this roster's foundation. Here's the part that should frustrate every Celtics fan watching this. Despite anchoring one of the best defenses in basketball, when the NBA's all-defensive teams were announced, Queta received votes on just 7 of 100 total ballots, 1 first-team vote and 6 second-team votes. By multiple advanced defensive metrics, he was a top 5 to 10 defender in the entire league last season, and almost nobody outside of Boston noticed. That's exactly why this Bleacher Report ranking matters. It's not just a nice pat on the back. It's national media finally catching up to something Celtics fans and the front office already knew. Queta at $14 million a year is one of the best value contracts in the league, full stop. As this roster reshapes itself around Tatum post-Jaylen Brown trade, having a 2-way anchor at center on a below-market deal gives Brad Stevens enormous flexibility to be aggressive elsewhere, whether that's Beal, Murphy, or another move we haven't even heard about yet. Don't sleep on Nemi. The rest of the league is finally starting to catch up, and you heard it here first. Hugo Gonzalez makes his statement, and the front office already believes. Before we wrap up, let's talk about the guy the Celtics refused to trade, even for Giannis Antetokounmpo, and why that decision is looking smarter by the day. Hugo Gonzalez, the Celtics' 28th overall pick in the 2025 draft out of Spain, just wrapped up an eye-opening Summer League run in Las Vegas. Boston went 3-2 in Summer League play, and Gonzalez was the headline story throughout. In his standout performance, he dropped 24 points against the Sacramento Kings in an 82-76 win, and across a smaller sample of games, he averaged over 18 points, 8 rebounds, 5.7 assists, and 1.7 steals per contest. For a 20-year-old second-year wing, those are legitimately impressive counting numbers against real competition. Summer League head coach Emile Jefferson praised Gonzalez's versatility directly, saying the Celtics have used him at every position from 1 through 5 because of his physicality and mobility, and that his energy and intensity make him really helpful for a coaching staff to have on the floor. Here's the story behind the story. When Boston was deep in trade discussions trying to acquire Giannis Antetokounmpo from Milwaukee, reports indicated the Celtics flatly refused to include Hugo Gonzalez or fellow young piece Baylor Shireman in any package. Giannis, as we know, ultimately landed with the Miami Heat instead. But the fact that Boston held Gonzalez back from that trade tells you everything about how highly the front office already viewed him, even before this Summer League breakout. That decision looks even smarter now. With Jaylen Brown gone to Philadelphia, there are real, meaningful minutes available on the wing. Gonzalez, at 6'6" with the physical tools to guard multiple positions, is positioned to be one of the players who absorbs some of that vacated role. Remember, this isn't coming out of nowhere. As a rookie last season, Gonzalez appeared in 74 games, averaging modest counting stats, 3.9 points, 3.3 rebounds, but posted an outstanding 11.9 net rating, meaning the team performed significantly better with him on the floor than off it. That's the kind of winning basketball impact stat that doesn't always show up in the box score, but matters enormously to a coaching staff. He also has an international resume worth noting. Gonzalez suited up for the Spanish national team in FIBA World Cup European qualifiers this offseason, putting him on track to represent Spain again with a shot at the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles. Spain, historically, is one of the most competitive international programs outside of the US, so that's a real signal of the talent evaluators see in him globally, not just in Boston. Boston did rest him for one Summer League matchup against Atlanta as a load management decision on a back-to-back, which is honestly a good sign. It shows the coaching staff is being deliberate and protective with his workload, rather than pushing him too hard too soon. Gonzalez profiles as exactly the kind of Swiss Army knife wing that modern title contenders need, a guy who can guard multiple positions, make winning plays, and space the floor enough to stay useful next to a star like Tatum. He's not going to be a 20-point scorer this year, but the Celtics didn't protect him from a Giannis trade for no reason. Watch this space. I think Hugo Gonzalez becomes a real name in the Rookie of the Year, Most Improved Player conversation by mid-season. All right, Celtics fans, let's bring it all together. Bradley Beal might be walking into Boston on a minimum deal, reuniting with his close friend Jason Tatum. Trey Murphy III's trade price just dropped from 4 first-round picks to 3, and with the extra draft capital from the Jaylen Brown trade, Boston is better positioned than ever to get a deal done. Neemias Queta just got named the single most underrated player in the entire NBA, validating that $56 million extension the Celtics gave him. And Hugo Gonzalez is proving, game by game, why the front office refused to trade him even for a top 5 player like Giannis Antetokounmpo. This roster is being completely reshaped in real time, and if even half of these storylines break the right way, Boston is walking into the 2026-27 season as a legitimate contender all over again. Which one of these stories are you most excited about? Drop it in the comments. Beal, Murphy, Queta, or Gonzalez? That's everything moving with this Celtics roster right now. Beal's free agency, the Murphy trade price drop, Queta's league-wide respect, and Hugo Gonzalez proving why Boston protected him. Which story has you most hyped? Drop it below. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll see you in the next Celtics Daily Hub breakdown. Let's go Celtics!